Bruce Brown. Am I crazy for talking myself into the shooting not being as big a deal as everybody seems to think it is going to be? Because I feel like if you're saying, okay, in the playoffs, he's going to be my backup point guard for 12 minutes a game or 10, 12 minutes a game. Okay, so you could surround him with enough shooting to make that work in theory. So then it's like, all right, well, what about the minutes he's going to be at the 2? And how many of those minutes is he going to be with Josh Hart on the floor at the same time? Because that's really what we're talking about here, right? It's Brown and Hart on the floor at the same time. Is that going to be 10 minutes a game? And you're telling me that they couldn't get, I'm trying to sell you on this, that you couldn't get away with 10 minutes a game if you also have Jalen Brunson on the floor, who I feel like cures a lot of ills. Maybe that's naive of me, but that's kind of what I'm going off of. I want to know your opinion.
No, it's not crazy. It's just, it's like I said, it's imperfect.
Yes.
First of all, if your bench unit can't shoot, it's not as bad as if your starters can't shoot, for every obvious reason. One of them being that they're probably going up against bench players who are usually more chaotic units and also not as good. And they're not necessarily going to be able to take advantage of other teams' flaws quite as much. If you have somebody who can run the offense, I think that's more important. And right now, I mean, look, McBride has actually been better than I thought he was going to be.
Absolutely.
He's proven to be a rotation player. I was skeptical of that extension when they gave it to him. After seeing how he's played since getting it, I totally understand why they gave him that extension. It's totally fine. He's been a hound defensively. He's had some really hot offensive games, but he doesn't run an offense. You know, that's not what he does stylistically. He dribbles a lot and he's not going to get you into your actions and that kind of stuff. And they could use somebody who's able to do that. If I were them, that would be my first priority over all else. Would it be great to get a shooter? Yeah. But it's like, again, I feel like I'm being redundant. You just have to run through the alternatives where it's like, okay, maybe you're able to go get Jordan Clarkson. Maybe. But you're not going to get Jordan Clarkson for nothing.
No.
And the Jazz, I don't think the Jazz feel compelled. Everybody's like, oh, the Jazz are going to trade Clarkson. They could trade Sexton. They could trade Olynyk. I think Olynyk's the only one where the Jazz really feel compelled to trade because he's expiring. The other ones, it's like Clarkson's under contract for 2 more years after this one. If they don't get an offer they like, and they're playing good ball, and
it's at a good number. That was a great bit of business to use their cap space last year. And the Sexton contract, all of a sudden, I mean, why would you trade Collins? I mean, unless someone's going to blow you away. What, like you, if you're Ainge, you need to get I don't know what the blue chip thing would be, but you got to get a real thing for Sexton, especially the way he's been playing.
He's been great. Colin Sexton is overly criticized. I know he's not like a facilitator. I know he's not a defender, but people talk about him like he's just like a chucker. And for 2 years, he has been a modicum of efficiency.
Our mutual friend, Jared Dubin, just wrote in his Substack newsletter how Sexton's been really good penetrating and dishing off of drives, which is a thing that he does not have a reputation for.
Yeah, he's been really good. And he's young. I think it'd be really funny if they used him as like a piece to then trade back for Donovan Mitchell after he was part of the original Donovan Mitchell trade.
The Knicks, get Sexton.
Yes. And look, we can have a whole conversation about whether Donovan Mitchell should be the guy anyway, based on all this stuff that we're talking about with Brunson right now.
Not today.
I'm sure we'll save that for another day. But yeah, I run through it and I don't think there's anybody who is perfect. And I'm really skeptical of the Dejounte Murray fit. He has a reputation of being a defender. And then you watch him in Atlanta and you're like, he's not defending though. Like he's really not defending. And I just need to know, this is why you have not advanced scouting. This is why you have pro personnel scouting departments, because a lot of what pro personnel scouts are doing, there didn't used to be pro personnel scouting departments in NBA teams. It's like
what's
a pretty
the
new
difference
thing.
between a pro personnel scout and just a scout? Because I frankly don't know.
So you have amateur scouts, which are going to look at college kids and that kind of stuff for the draft. You're going to have advanced scouts, which are going to go to the look at the teams that you're about to play, and they work for the coaching staff. So your advanced scout is like the Knicks play Denver tomorrow. So the Knicks had an advanced scout or two at a Denver game, I don't know, a few days ago. And they watch Denver and they map out all their plays and they write out all their scouting reports. This guy's doing this well now. This guy has now changed how he's operating on this. They now run this play with this guy in the corner as opposed to this guy. You're doing all that kind of stuff. And then you're reporting that back to the coaching staff so they're able to put together a scouting report for the upcoming game. Those are advanced scouts. And then there are pro personnel scouts who scout pro personnel. And there didn't used to be pro personnel departments on NBA teams. It's like kind of the newest branch of NBA front offices. It's really taken off in the last 10 years or so. And the reason why was because the kind of line of thinking with lead execs was always, well, if you're in the league, I have an opinion of you. Like, I don't need an opinion on Jordan Clarkson. I know I don't need an opinion on Dejounte Murray. I'm a GM of an NBA team. I obviously know everything there is to know about Dejounte Murray's game. But part of the value in having those pro personnel scouts now is not necessarily just getting like, hey, Dejounte Murray hasn't been as good on defense this year. Hey, he's fallen asleep off the ball more. It's more actually like the off the court stuff. It's the intel. And it's, oh, this guy, you're talking, oh, would this guy be amenable to this kind of contract? Let's do some digging, see if we can find out. Would this guy fit in with our personality? Let's check in with his college coaches. Let's do some recon. Let's see what's going on. It's almost like an investigative job in some ways. And
interesting.
And one thing, if I were any team that was interested in Dejounte Murray, one thing that I would have my pro personnel department doing right now is find out the answer to the question, why is he not defending this year? Because he was quite good. And I actually always thought it was a little overstated, his value, because he was a gambler, but he was really good in passing lanes and he was disruptive and definitely a good defender. And he has really fallen off a cliff. Now I want to know, is he not defending because something's different with his body? That would be important to know. Is he not defending because he's not happy in Atlanta? Is he not defending because he doesn't understand the schemes or doesn't believe in the schemes, can't get behind them? If that's the case, maybe that changes with a change of scenery. Is he not defending because he started to become more of a scorer and was like, well, that's it for defense now? If that's the case, that's something I want to know. Is he not defending because he got the big contract extension? And he's like, well, I got paid. I don't have to defend. To be clear, I have no idea what the answer is. It could be something that I didn't list that I couldn't even think of. But I would need to know, in order to say, like, will he start to defend again? You need to know what the answer to that question is. And if I'm any team that's considering Dejounte Murray, like, I'm going after that. All this is to say, John, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. There's not a perfect answer, which is why, as long as they do something that is logical and part of a plan that makes sense and doesn't totally screw them in the short term and or long term and doesn't mess up the good stuff they already have,
sure,
I'll probably understand whatever their move is. And I do think there will be a move, and I do think there should be a move considering kind of the way they've struggled with Brunson off the court.
Two last things. Well, three. I get a shatter. Three last things in 5 minutes. We're going to do this.
I can stay. I don't care. I got nowhere to be.
You're so nice. Okay. I still want to make it quick because I have to get out of here. On Brown, if you had to guess, would you guess that if they acquire Brown, and let's assume that Quentin Grimes goes out in the deal, whether it's to Toronto or somewhere else, that come playoff time, there will probably be an 8-man rotation?
You mean with like Deuce out of it?
Deuce out of it, yeah.
Yeah, that probably sounds right.
Okay.
I mean, Tibbs is going with an 8-man rotation in second half.
Second halves anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, like when Hartenstein's healthy, he's going. I mean, I could, if Mitch isn't back, like he could go with an 8-man in the first half, and he could go with a 7-man when his back's against the wall. Right?
No, absolutely. I mean, and I ask that again because, like, if you're looking at Brown and you're looking at what he's able to do in the playoffs, the odds are that he will be out there probably exclusively when Brunson is off the court. He will be out there with Hart, Anunoby, and Randall, and whichever the center is. Like, that's I think that'll, just my 2 cents, I think that'll work. Especially since, like, you brought up shooting before. Guess what the backup unit right now could do? They could shoot. Dude Surprise, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league by percentage. He's pulling up. Quentin Grimes, obviously, he could shoot. And Hart, obviously, is the one who can't. But when Anunoby's in there, he's great corner 3 shooter. So, like, it's like, I'd kind of just rather get the better basketball player in there, but that's just me. I know Andrew's not a fan of this. Second question, Brogdon. We haven't talked about Brogdon. I know
that unit is also, like, that's a pretty monster defensive unit.
That's what I was getting.
Brown, Hart, Anunoby, and I don't care if you got Hartenstein there or Mitch there, if Mitch is back. Like, that's a monster defensive combination with those 4 guys. That that's just active. It's stifling. I mean, if there is an argument, you could put together lineups where Josh Hart is your 4th best defender.
Oh, you could,
like, easily. Josh Hart's a good defender. Like, you could put together, there are points over the last year where Josh Hart is the guy they have guarding the other team's best player. They could put together lineups if they want where, like, if in the regular season, even, I don't think they would do this in the postseason, because postseason, I don't think you're going Randall and Brunson off the floor unless, you know what? I take that back. I said that, and I don't actually believe it. I think there's a world where maybe you do. If Randall is getting so smothered by double teams when he doesn't have Brunson there, and you're like, let's just optimize him next to Brunson. And we're just going to go, if you want to go that way, and you're like, let's just go all defense with a second unit, you could mess with things around. So you got Brown, you got Hart, you got Anunoby, you've got one of the centers, and you've got, like, you could throw another defender out there. You could work it so that DiVincenzo is out there with the bench. And, like, that's a monster defensive unit. You're just not going to score.
Can I please jump in?
Andrew's coming in.
Can I please jump in? How are they scoring points on that unit? Please tell me how they're scoring points.
Well, for one,
how are they scoring points on this unit?
Right, so they don't need defensive issues. They don't have defensive issues right now on the second unit. They need an offensive upgrade. This is Tom Thibodeau we're talking about. He's made defensive units work in the past.
And Bruce Brown may not be able to shoot the ball very well. He's a guy who could run a pick and roll. Spread catch, you actually wrote in your story today, I believe.
And when you know that you don't have to honor the shot, you can defend the pick and roll easier. How about this? Play Quentin Grimes. He can shoot. Their defensive unit right now in the second unit is great. That the 4-minute stretch to start the 4th quarter last night was pretty good.
Hey, Andrew, what did I text the group chat yesterday?
Yes.
Just play Quentin Grimes, which is why enabling this Bruce Brown talk is irresponsible on your part, Fred Cat.
I said the Knicks, I sent to the group chat yesterday. I said the Knicks could really use a guy who can shoot threes, move off the ball, guard well on the ball, guard well enough off the ball. But they could really use a Quentin Grimes type. It's a shame that they don't have the ability to play with.
I completely agree. Unfortunately, there are a finite number of minutes, and there is a need right now for something that Quentin Grimes, for as much as he does pretty well, does not do. And they need to solve that problem. And as we just spent an hour talking about, there are no perfect solutions to this problem, but it is a problem, and it is a problem that needs to be addressed before the playoffs.
I'm including Andrew. So Andrew, who's I agree with all the Brown criticism. Like, I agree, but okay, who's the guy?
Alec Burks, Jordan Clarkson, a point guard, like that's who.
Okay, I just want to clip you right now.
What?
Just take this video, that sentence right there. Alec Burks, Jordan Clarkson, a point guard. I want to take that clip. I want to get a time machine. I want to go back in time to the 2021-22 season. And I just want to show that clip of you saying Alec Burks, a point guard, to the version of you that spent a season watching Alec Burks, the point guard.
Okay, that's a strong man, because that's not the argument. Like saying that it has anything to do with him getting starts over Emmanuel quickly in games that don't matter is not that I'm talking about. Okay, Fred.
Of course.
What I'm saying right now is what they could use, since the team has prioritized going for wins, is a guy that got 33 points for and I quote our good friend Benji Ritholtz, the solid 4-40 Detroit Pistons. And all he's doing is getting buckets on their second unit. Right?
Andrew, going off in January.
Yeah.
I love it. No one loves Alec Burks more than me. It's a contract issue. It's a contract issue.
That's what I understand the imperfect options that you're all talking about. The fact that this keeps going back to Bruce Brown, and then it's like, oh, we could make this work, and they could play defense. The second unit right now plays enough defense. They're not scoring,
and he would he would make the offense. He would absolutely make the offense better. To say nothing of the fact that I think their opportunities in transition would increase. I think that unit defensively would generate a lot more transition opportunities than the unit they have out there now is.
Andrew, here's my thing. I agree with you. If you can just like find a way to get Alec Burks where the only thing of value you give up is a second round pick, I think that's a great ad. That's awesome. Then you throw in Alec Burks, you add him to what you already have, and you're in good shape. And hopefully you don't have to give up as much for Alec Burks as you do for Bruce Brown, for every obvious reason. Yep. That being said, if you just throw Alec Burks into this second unit, it's not like all of a sudden they're scoring like crazy either. Like
they're scoring more, probably scoring easier. If we're just talking about the 12 minutes that Jalen Brunson's not going to play, probably less in the postseason.
Burks is going to create some buckets for himself. He's going to shoot threes. He's really become a capable 3-point shooter, but it's not like he's running a play and getting a shot for somebody else. Like there are flaws everywhere around there. I agree with you. If it takes a lot for Bruce Brown, I would bow out. Like I think there could be a market for him there. He just keeps getting bid up. Even after, like, one thing where the Knicks are probably really happy about is that Terry Rozier only went for a lottery protected first and an expiring contract, and that was it. So now if anyone's like, well, yeah, you know, Jordan Clarkson needs 2 firsts, or Alex Caruso needs 3 firsts. You're like, what are you talking about? Terry Rozier was the 1 first and it was lottery protected, even if it rolls into an unprotected the next year. Like, what are you talking about? So I think that could help them, but I could see Brown just get bid up by the market because they're like a team like Philly could be like, no, he's the 5th guy we need. He's our missing piece.
Free agency. Yeah.
And then you just have to pay in order to get him. And if that's the case, I would not pay through the nose for Bruce Brown. But we're just talking about a bunch of guys who are realistic and are all going to bring in their own flaws.
We're not talking about a bunch of guys, Fred. He is specifically, I feel like I'm in Mean Girls. He's trying to make Fetch work. He's trying to make.
I was about to ask about another. First of all, I've mentioned a lot of guys. I was about to ask about a different guy that I should have asked about earlier, Malcolm Brogdon. Jake Fisher brought Malcolm Brogdon up to you, but before we move on, Andrew, anything else?
Just one follow-up question to Fred, because there is exactly one scenario where I'd probably get on board with the Bruce Brown train. Is there a world they can make a trade with Toronto that doesn't include Quentin Grimes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's like Fournier and this year's like
Fournier and this year's Dallas first, Fournier and like if it's like the Josh Hart trade from last year, and it's like Fournier and to be clear,
and he just takes like Deuce's role in the rotation, and then Grimes. I'm worried about the spacing. I'm worried about the shooting specific. If you're actually trying to create a second unit, that is what I'm prioritizing.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I would not trade a first and Quentin Grimes for Bruce Brown.
Okay. Wanted to make that clear, because that's what I believe the conversation has come to, is that we're trying to trade a young player that can do the things Bruce Brown can do on defense and shoot the ball, which is something Bruce Brown can't. Don't do this, that he's not as good a defender as Bruce Brown.
He's not as good a defender as Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown's he was guarding the team's best point of attack options last year. It was doing it well.
I think Bruce Brown's a guy you could trust to defend in the playoffs.
Quentin Grimes played 48 minutes in Game 5 by your head coach.
I know. He was
goodness, he didn't play because he didn't shoot well, which, guess what? Bruce Brown doesn't do either.
Andrew, I absolutely love this. You're the best producer ever.
I'm Mugatu. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills over here. We have Josh Hart. We have the guy that does all the Tibbsy things.
Sometimes more the merrier.
I would not
try and win every game 84-80, Fred.
Stop,
that's going to be the playoffs. Go ahead. I'll continue with the pod. I apologize.
Maybe they will.
Oh. Brogdon is what I was going to say about.
What a cameo. Yeah, to be clear, by the way, Grimes and a first for Brown is an overpay. Like, you look at the guys who have moved of similar ilk in the last few years. Like, I don't even know if Brown goes, he could go for like a bad first, but I don't even know if he goes for a first. Toronto's not necessarily in a position of leverage unless they create one where he gets bid all the way up, like I was talking about before. And like, I could just see it being like a ton of seconds and matching money for Bruce Brown. I could see it being something like that.
Hachimura went for 4 seconds.
Right.
And Hachimura had not proven himself to be a rotation player on a good team. Bruce Brown has proven himself to be a 6-man on a title team. Now, it was a unique title team, and his role was able to be what it was in part because they have a once in a billion years center who could do all those things where you could essentially play him at like kind of your... Bruce Brown was their center in a lot of ways in terms of the spacing. So like very unique, but like he still proved that.
Yeah, he's a good player. I wouldn't be shocked if it took, last year when they traded Josh Hart, they sent out their own pick. They lottery protected their own pick. And they said, if it's in the lottery this year, it just becomes 2 seconds and it gets expunged, but it probably won't be because they'll be in the playoffs. They could do a similar thing for Brown this year where they send a pick that will probably end up being in the 20s. It gets automatically expunged. There's a good chance that Dallas pick is going to be a better pick than their own pick. So if I were them, I'd be sending their own pick and not the Dallas pick. Right now, that Dallas pick is 17 and their pick is 22. And you could do that, but I wouldn't do that plus Grimes. That I'm with Andrew. That would be a lot. I think Quentin Grimes should be worth more than that. Even as he continues to not play as much as he used to.
Maybe he should. And I agree, selling on him right now would, I think, be selling low. Wait,
you want to talk about Brogdon?
Yeah, I just want to say quickly on Grimes. The notion that this is going to get better if he's on the team, meaning Grimes, and like not playing in the playoffs, or like playing 5 minutes here and there in the playoffs, like that to me is something doesn't sit right with that. And that's exactly, if they get Bruce Brown without giving up Grimes, like you already know Grimes, there's some games he's not going to play, which again, I'm sure that would go over swimmingly with all parties involved. Brogdon, what are your thoughts on Brogdon?
I mean, I think it depends on what you have to give up for him. Like, I guess that's a caveat I should have given from the beginning, or else Andrew would still have his head on straight. I think it exploded. I think it's all over the walls right now. I can't even see him. I think he might be gone. I think we might just be...
He's expired.
Yeah, we might just be on this podcast right now with no producer. We can say whatever we want. We can just go into Pistons talk.